listening to your show.
The point that there's limited news
I just
coverage.
want to know what your viewpoint is.
Do because major news organizations have been told on, what they can report on.
The people's voice. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am Trey Evans. This is the people's voice, and I am the people's voice. Thanks again for checking me out this week. I really appreciate it. For those of you who have been listening over the last couple of weeks, I appreciate your patience with me as I continue to make some enhancements to the studio. And I know quality, at least audio quality, has been a little shaky the last couple of weeks. I acknowledge that. I shouldn't say shaky, but not to the standard that you clearly hear me now. And that's because I have not been broadcasting in my studio. I've been traveling, and then on top of that, I'm making some updates to the studio. So today I am back, and it feels so good. So thanks again for checking me out. I really appreciate it. As always, share the information on the social platforms. If there's any questions, comments, suggestions, you can reach me at I am Trey Evans on Instagram, I am Trey Evans on Twitter, and I am Trey Evans at Facebook. And also you can reach me on Instagram at Trey Be Talking. And let's have a conversation. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you think. So today I wanted to talk about the teaching crisis in the United States. I don't know. Well, I do know there's been a lot of stories about this, at least earlier in the year, as many schools were making the transition back to from in-person to from online to in-person, or virtual to in-person. That's what I was trying to come up with. And so early on, there was a lot of stories about the amount of teachers that have decided to quit and leave the profession. And I think that died down a little bit, obviously, with so many of the other bigger news stories that have come in during the last month, 2 months, especially with the shootings and Supreme Court case decisions and things of that nature. So a lot of this information is getting buried, but I wanted to revisit it because, we are now at the summer break, and this is typically when, teachers and students take a break. But all signs are pointing towards that when school resumes in August or September, whatever school district you're listening in here in the United States, there's going to be a truly shortage of teachers if you have not already experienced that in your schools. And many of the teachers have pointed out several reasons for not wanting to remain in the teaching profession. And, listen, I'm not a teacher. Obviously, I dealt with teachers as a student and also as a parent. And I've always commended teachers, especially, once I became a parent, because it's a difficult job. It's one of those jobs where you truly have to seek your reward in the, in the sense of that you are creating the next leaders and thought leaders that will be required to lead the country and the community and things of that nature. So it is one of those selfless jobs, but me personally, I've always respected the teachers, and as my daughter navigated through elementary school, junior high school, and high school, I've always been one to send an email to say, hey, thank you, appreciate all your work, things of that nature. So on this side of the microphone, I am definitely pro teacher. But so there is a wave of teachers who have decided to quit and leave their positions. And more than ever before, this number is increasing. And again, a lot of reasons why, which we'll cover here today. But it's been noted that typically on an annual basis, usually about 8% of teachers will leave the profession, or at least it's estimated about 8% of teachers will leave the teaching profession on a regular year. And a lot of these studies go up until 2020, up until the pandemic. And a lot of these statistics that I'm pulling are statistics that deal with from 2020 up until today. So typically, prior to the pandemic, 8% of teachers would leave the profession every year. It's now estimated that almost, and this was a survey that was conducted by the National Education Association, the NEA, which is the teachers union. They did a survey of teachers this year. And almost 55% of the teachers in the union said that they planned on not coming back for the new school year. Now, obviously this is done by the National Education Association. It is a union, so there might be some bias or leverage there with conducting that survey, but it's still staggering that 55% of teachers said that they wouldn't come back. And many of them have stated that it's the pandemic that's really changing how they are able to educate in the classrooms and just overall how they're feeling. Now, we've known for decades that teachers have not been compensated properly or fairly, at least in my estimation. But since the pandemic, there have been a number of shortages in terms of staff, incidents in classrooms with students. A lot of the teachers have gone from teaching to disciplinarian and having to do more disciplining than teaching. So there's a lot of different factors that have contributed to this. But I wanted to play a clip from a teacher. This teacher was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she basically goes on to explain why she decided to leave school. And this is, when I heard her story, I can definitely understand, why a teacher would feel like this is an opportune time to leave the school district and to move on, in terms of looking for a new career or a new opportunity. But let me play this clip from a teacher, again, from North Carolina. And I'm just looking for this clip as I'm sitting here talking to you because I just had it. But she explains, in detail why she decided to leave and to, leave the teaching profession. So let's take a listen to this.
But Misko says long hours, large classroom sizes, and a heavy workload led to burnout. The pandemic was the final straw.
Teachers feel that their voices are not heard and that their voices don't matter. And that is really demoralizing. And that was demoralizing for me as well, that despite the amount of work and care and expertise that you put into your job, that what you say is irrelevant.
And, that summarizes, I'm sure, for many teachers across the country, the feeling that they've had and the reasons that they want to leave. Imagine, you being in your job, non-teachers and just anyone who's listening to the podcast, and you feel like you have no say in the role that you play in your job. You're basically just told what you can and can't do, and there's no form of feedback, or there's no form of input that you can make in terms of making changes in your office or in your role as in your position. It's very frustrating. And then you put on top of the fact all of the other factors in terms of the poor, I shouldn't say poor, but very low pay, and then classrooms that are overcrowded. These are all conditions for teachers who have decided that they are not going to come back. So again, referring back to that survey that was done by the NEA, they estimated based on their survey that 50%, 55% of teachers will not be coming back in the next school year. So what does that do in terms of the education quality in the United States, which, for well over a decade now, there has been conversation, and not just conversation, but actual data that shows that education in the United States has been on the decline for quite some time, and especially when you're thinking about K through 12, which has been birth to many private schools and charter schools and other private education movements that, or I should say, non-public education movements that have arisen as a result of this. And matter of fact, it's estimated that over 600,000. Let me take that back. Actually, let me take that back. Make the correction right now. I said 600,000, not 600,000. Let me be clear. So, and I'm reading a article from the Wall Street Journal. And here in the Wall Street Journal, it says some 300,000 public school teachers and staff. So this is not just teachers, but public school teachers and staff have left the field between 2020 and up to today. That's nearly a 3% drop in the workforce, and this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So not 600,000, but 300,000 public school teachers and other staff have left the field in the last 2 years. So that's a staggering number either way. And again, I refer to the NEA survey that said 55% of teachers said that they would leave education. And again, a lot of them are leaving for a various amount of reasons, right? They're leaving because of COVID-19 protocols. They're leaving because of staffing shortages. Again, as teachers are leaving, these positions are not being filled, which is creating a huge crisis in education. The mask mandate and the back and forth, especially when school started back in person in September of 2021, the back and forth of should you wear a mask, would you wear a mask, take the mask or put the mask on. Again, these are individuals who are in these classrooms, and they're required to govern these things, which can be very difficult at times, especially when you're trying to control a large class of sometimes 20, 30 children, depending on, the school district that your child or that your teacher is in. Also, the political battles, as the teacher we've heard in the previous clip said, of just what they can and can't teach or discuss in the classroom. Again, a lot of these teachers have very insightful and innovative ways that they want to be able to deliver information to the children, but a lot of times they get handcuffed by a lot of the political red tape that says that they want the teachers to stick to the curriculum, which makes it difficult for many teachers to continue to go on in these type of environments. Continue reading this. I'm reading this article again. This is from the Wall Street Journal. They quote a teacher who teaches in California. And, she basically flat out said she felt hopeless, or I felt so hopeless, quote, because she felt like there wasn't anything that she could do in terms of being able to control what was going on in her classroom. She said teachers are getting criticized by the district, they're getting criticized by the parents. Staff members are being threatened by students because, again, all of this bent up energy, so to speak, as these students were at home for almost a year and a half, and now you place them back in the classroom. It is a recipe for disaster, and this is again affecting how well students in America are being educated, because these shortfalls are being reflected a lot, especially in specialized areas such as science and math, that has been placed upon the teachers and the school districts to try to develop students who are proficient in those areas, to be able to fill many roles that are available in the United States. But I wanted to play one more audio clip here, and this was kind of going to my point about how states are struggling to fill some of these vacancies, because many states have enlisted not old, retired teachers. Many states have enlisted retired teachers. They've enlisted state employees, even National Guard members to fill in as substitute teachers. And even though they're able to fill in those spots as they pop up, it is not a long-term plan. And in many instances, children are the ones who are being dealt the hand that unfortunately is not going to allow them to get the best result from their education, when you have inconsistencies in who is leading the classroom. But let me play this clip regarding how substitute teachers are now being sourced in many states. Take a listen to this.
Substitute teachers perform a valuable role, but the fact of the matter is they are not the classroom teacher who knows the kids and knows where they are with the material. The staff shortages at both the teacher and the sub level, I think the combination is raising some fresh concerns about kids maybe falling behind in their education at a time when there is already widespread agreement that remote learning was bad for a lot of kids when it comes to the academics.
And, that's a huge point, again, about the shortfalls that are being created from teachers leaving and then substitute teachers coming in, trying to fill the gaps. But again, the level of education begins to tail off because of the inconsistency of who's leading the classrooms. And then, many students did struggle with the virtual learning because, teaching and learning is most effective when, especially at those younger development ages, when it can be in person and there's a social interaction piece that comes into play that allows for education to flourish. But as you can hear, this is a huge crisis that's going on in the country, and I don't think that enough light is being shed on that. Now, anytime you have there's always two sides to every story, right? So you have a lot of teacher resignations taking place in public and private schools. But now here's the thing where it's not being talked about a lot. You have all of these resignations in education, but these teachers have to go somewhere, right? So where are these teachers going? So a lot of these teachers are being hired in other industries because, again, they have degrees from colleges, and a lot of these skill sets that they've developed are transferable skill sets, right? So they can use these skill sets in sales roles and instructional coaches, software engineers, behavioral health technicians. I mean, there's a array of other fields that are reaping the benefits, so to speak, from teachers who are leaving the classroom and going to other professions. Now, there is a lot of pushback also taking place in many school districts, because many school districts are now forcing or enforcing the contracts that teachers sign, because teachers have to sign contracts basically stating that they'll be in a district for 5 years, 10 years, whatever the contract is. But many of these school districts, in particular in Texas and in North Carolina, they are beginning to enforce the policy and saying, well, if you decide to leave, we're going to basically, strip you of your or suspend your teaching license for a year. There are other penalties that they are trying to assess to get teachers to stay. Now, and I covered this a little bit in a few podcasts back where we talked about non-competes, and basically they are, utilizing these agreements, if you will, these contracts, is kind of like non-competes. It's like, well, either you got to teach or you can't. You got to teach here or you can't go anywhere else. I mean, they're really putting these teachers under pressure. I'm looking here at the Texas State Board of Education, and they have suspended over 300 teaching licenses just in the last couple of years due to the abandonment of what they're calling abandonment of job during the COVID-19 pandemic. And, they list here all of the penalties that are possibly can be assessed. And again, it's suspension of certificate for a term. They can't accept any other job opportunity for that term. So there's a lot of ramifications that are coming as a result of this. And then in terms of filling in the gaps, as I mentioned, National Guard, you have retirees coming back. You have the J-1 visa program, which a lot of states have been utilizing over the last decade, where they bring in basically foreign workers to become substitute teachers and permanent teachers in certain school districts. Now, a lot of school districts have been using this as a cost savings because obviously they're bringing over a foreign teacher who, although it has to go through a process before they can work at any accredited school in the United States, but still it is at a much greater discount. But that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to go into it. So what can we do, right? Because, with all of these stories, I like to get to what can be done. Well, this truly is about pressure on local school boards and local school boards first, about what they will be doing to ensure that not only how they will provide support to these teachers, but increase pay and change conditions. Now, this is a massive project, and literally it will take decades to even get close to some semblance of what education could be and should be in this country. But our voices have to be heard, right? We have to make it a point to speak to our local school districts, obviously our local officials, and then run up the flagpole, if you will, about what our state and our obviously our president is doing to address this crisis. Because again, these are the future leaders of our country. These students in these secondary and primary K through 12 schools, if they are not provided the proper education now, 10 years from now, we will really be in a serious situation. So make your voices heard. Teachers are overwhelmed. They are feeling unappreciated, and the pandemic has only escalated those feelings. And there is a true crisis going on in our country. Get the word out and tap into your local school districts, tap into your local council people to find out what's being done, and make sure that this is getting addressed today so we can fix the problems tomorrow. So I hope this was informative. Again, I try to tackle things that I feel are just underneath the radar and haven't gotten enough light. So I hope this conversation sheds some light and you guys share it like you always do. I really appreciate it. As always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the people's voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute. I am Trey Evans, the people's voice.